So we're going to start with skills, and in this case, engineering, as the power grid is necessary for the oversized remote reps. Next up is some basic targeting skills, as you will need to be able to target quite a few people at one time. Most importantly, your remote shield repair skill will save you both on capacitor as well as boost how much you can heal. And lastly, whatever skills affect your ship traits. It is important to point out, while higher skills are obviously better, you only really need 4-4 or 5-4 to get started. While logistics is fairly easy to train, most of your fitting is going to be dictated by your power grid. While some people will run 6 large remote reps, some will throw a couple of mediums in there instead, just to save on the power and/or capacitor. As for your medium slots, just cram a bunch of group capacitor modules on there. When you have a few logis in the fleet, that adds up real fast. One remote capacitor transfer is a good way to help counter enemy E-War. Your low slots are going to want a little bit of tank and/or a bit of capacitor assistance. And of course a propulsion module to make sure you can keep up with your Guardian. Shield rigs are super cheap, in this case EM and thermal resistance, along with a core defense for a deeper tank. Engineering rigs can go two ways, either a bunch of capacitor modules or auxiliary power grids if you're going for those 6 large remote shield reppers. Let's move on to the settings in the fleet window and how to prepare for the fight. To get to the settings, press these 3 buttons. They do not save, so you'll have to redo this each time you join a fleet. Once in the command filter window, you'll want to set it up as follows. This will make sure you're not flooded with commands that are not meant for you, like attack commands, as you have no guns. Now we'll get into following fleet members and whom to target. First, you will want to follow your Guardian, as shown here. To do this, you'll want to click here, and then here. Then you'll want to find the ship in question, whether that be Guardian or Interdictor. Once the player is found, tap it, click here for Set as Followed. In this case, I already had the Guardian followed, so I was looking for the Interdictor. We follow them and pre-lock them simply so that we can get support to them as quickly as possible, as these will be the 2 most important ships and they will die quickly without support. As you can see me doing here, it's a really good idea to pre-lock other ships that have fallen outside of the Guardian bubble for one reason or another. Your enemy will likely see the straggler and target them next. If you have them pre-locked, you might just save their ship. This can be a double-edged sword. If someone calls for help and you have maximum ships locked, by the time you unlock someone and relock the ship who called for help, he could already be dead. So simply make sure you have an extra space to lock open at all times. I am next to the Guardian, so if they're close to me, they're probably inside the bubble. So I simply watch their distance at the top of the screen, and when they're within range, I simply unlock them so that I can free up more spaces to lock other ships that might be in need. As for capacitor recharge mode, this is only helpful if your fleet is stationary, or moving very slowly. Again, a double-edged sword. Make sure you don't forget it's running. If your fleet begins moving quickly, you will just as quickly fall out of the bubble, due to the recharge mode's speed nerf. In the case of gate camps, it's also a good idea to pre-lock tackling ships, like this faction cruiser. Because their role is tackle, they need to be close to the gate and will not be covered by the Guardian bubble, making you their only hope. I usually prioritize these targets by the highest value. When a fleet member calls for aid, it will show up here. You need only tap the symbol and then respond, and your ship will automatically lock the player in question. Lastly, I'd like to point out a few random tips. Again, don't forget that your recharge mode is running. If it makes you fall out of the bubble, however, another great tip is to use your damage control should you get shot at while out of the bubble. Logis are pretty quick, so that damage control should last long enough to get you back inside the bubble. You'll also want to be very careful not to accidentally hit your single drone and end up shooting at a teammate. Most new Logi pilots will oftentimes forego the drone altogether until they get more used to it. Personally, I launch mine the moment I'm on grid, before locking any targets. Anyways, that's about it, so good luck out there to our hopeful future logistic pilots.